I'm gonna tell you. It's sort of a coming-of-age story. Yeah, a bit of my coming-of-age story. That's more embarrassing, and nothing good really comes out of it. But I was a late bloomer. You guys can probably tell. Still hoping for the tits. They might come. I'm only 32. They might. But I was a late bloomer in every sense, okay? I was a late bloomer emotionally, mentally. Like, I just didn't... A lot of the phases people go through in high school when you're like a weird kid, like, you're meant to go through those in high school because then adults are just like, oh yeah, what a weird teenager. But I didn't go through those in high school. I went through those in my early 20s. And if you go through weird phases in your early 20s, then other adults around you are like, she doesn't have access to a gun, does she? Okay, good. You want to go through those things when you're teenagers. But I didn't. I was too afraid of everything. I had a really mean mom, and I was afraid of authority as a teenager. And so a phase that I skipped as a teenager was my stealing phase. You guys all stole stuff as teens? Yeah. Honestly, I saw you before the show. Some of you guys are still stealing today. But you're not stealing with the same heart, Now I'm just not going to pay $6 for a bag of chips, okay? But in high school, you would steal things for the thrill of it, And I remember when my friends started stealing stuff in middle school, I was a mall kid. Anyone in here a mall kid? Yeah, hell yeah. Your mom would drop you off at the mall at 9 a.m. Mall opened in 45 minutes. And then when you were ready to go home at 4 p.m., you would just call collect. And then as soon as it came time for you to put your name in, remember the Carrot Top did the commercials? You would dial up the middle. And then as soon as it came time for you to put your name in, you would go, Mom, pick me up from the mall. And then it would cut you off and you'd hang up the phone. And then you would hope your mom would show up. So when my friends started stealing, it was like when you and your sibling first smoked a cigarette, It was like my friends were stealing stuff and they were like, you got to steal something too. So you can't tell on anybody, because I was definitely a tattletale. I panicked a lot. And when you panic, you can't keep your mouth shut. And that was me, okay? And so they were like, you have to steal something too. And so we're at the mall, and I go to Claire's Accessories, okay? One of my favorites. Yeah. Shout out, yeah. The 10 girls in here, this is for you. This is us. But yeah, I went to Claire's Accessories, and this was during like the Britney Spears pinstripe fedora phase. That's not what I stole, but that was there, And so what I stole was a pair of fingerless gloves. Which, when you really look at it, like, to steal fingerless gloves, that's like you're gonna steal something and definitely leave fingerprints behind. Not a good criminal. And so I stole those, and I'm carrying them around the mall. I got away with it. My heart's fucking pounding the rest of the time I'm there. And we are getting ready to leave. We had already called our moms. I'm panicking so much that, like, I don't know, my mom's gonna search me when I get in her car. That she's gonna, before I get in the Toyota Corolla, she's gonna be like, spread them. And then I'm just gonna have fingerless gloves falling out of it. Like, that's what happened in my head. And so before we leave, I go, all right, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And I run back to Claire's, and I put the fingerless gloves back on the shelf. And I swear to this day, I made eye contact with the 16-year-old working there. And even she was like, keep them. You fucking loser. And then it's just like, as you get, I'm probably 12 at that point. As you get older, you just keep upping the ante, and it's like, you have different friends. Everyone has their phase at a different time, and so I just went through all these phases with people. I had one friend who used to go to a store, and she would take like 10 pairs of underwear into the dressing room, and she would put all of them on, and then she would leave. So she's walking out the door, Cole's like, nothing to see here. This is my bush, don't be looking at that, I'm 14. Okay, can you imagine having 10 thongs up your ass right now? And it's like, at this age, I'm like, my mom does the laundry, she can't tell. She can't tell that her daughter has a fucking Dr. Seuss G-string now that she didn't have last week. This is fucking crazy. And then I had friends, and then you kind of got to the point where I'm like being cool with it. The movie 13 really was affected me as a kid. And so I'm like just trying to be cool in all these situations. And I remember one day, me and my friend Taylor were at the mall. We go to Hollister, okay? I can't afford Hollister. I used to try it on all the time. And so we went in the dressing room, tried on a couple things, and then Taylor opened her bag and pulled a pair of pliers out. I was like, okay, Taylor, I actually think we're criminals now, and I can't be a part of this. And she took these pliers and she pulled these security tags off. And then she goes, I cut a lining in the seam of my purse. She cut in the seam of it so she could put the clothes beyond the lining of her purse. And I was like, what the fuck movies are you watching? How do you know how to do this? I'm panicking. You walk out of a Hollister back in the day, you had to open your bag so that a 16-year-old could look inside of it and make sure you weren't stealing. And so now I'm like right behind her like, holy shit, I'm sweating. If this girl looks at me, I'm just gonna say it. No choice. I'm like, she's stealing! Oh my God, it was the worst thing. It stressed me out. All my teenage years, it stressed me out so much. And then there came a point in my early 20s where I was like, I kind of, I had self-confidence. I started wearing lipstick. Not to brag, but takes a long time to get it inside the lines. So wasn't cool. But I was like kind of going through all these phases, and I wasn't afraid of authority anymore, And at the time, this is just sort of important for the story later. At the time, I was also going through a lot of phases physically. I dyed my hair a lot. I actually, at that time, had bleached it to the point that it looked terrible. And then over the bleach, I dyed it pink. Thank you. Thank you. It gets a little bit worse than that. And then I also shaved the sides of it. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. To emulate my favorite DJ at the time, Skrillex. Yeah. Yeah, you guys know he has that song that's like, wah, 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 wah. If somebody could break a glass now, that's the big finisher. I still love Skrillex, honestly, but I would never cut my hair like that. He's a mature man now, okay? He's coming out with a new album, or has a new album out. And so I had the sides of it shaved as well, okay? And so this is how I'm walking around acting like I'm not drawing any attention to myself while I'm like stealing a bunch of shit. And I went through and I was stealing all kinds of shit. I wrote some of it down so I wouldn't forget what I stole, because I stole a bunch of Victoria's Secret lotions and perfumes. They do not have a censor on them, thank you. PSA, I used to go into a shoe store, I'd leave my old shoes in a box, put the new shoes on, leave. It's a pro tip for you. Okay, one time I did get a Bluetooth speaker from Target. I also voided a bunch of sales at the coffee shop I worked at and stole $50, thank you. And that's when you really lose people, because they're like, that's actually wrong. But here to tell you, I don't give a fuck. And here's how I found out that at jobs, all those stupid, shitty fucking jobs, you're like, these people suck. It's like, yeah, of course they suck. Working sucks. I stole that $50, and the next day she goes, $50 is missing, and I go, weird. And then she goes, she doesn't want to stay at fucking work, and so she goes, all right, we'll watch for it tonight, see if it comes up somewhere. And I was like, okay. So I voided out $50 more in drinks. And I put it back in the register, and I go, I didn't notice any money missing. And she goes, okay. I was like, yeah, we don't give a fuck. And then I had a friend who worked at Michael's craft store. Okay, you guys know the one? I had a friend who worked at Michael's craft store, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, what are you gonna steal from Michael's craft store? But somebody working there told me that they won't do anything. Even if they see you stealing, their only option is to call the police. And the police are not gonna take Michael's craft store seriously. And I was like, okay. And so I just wanted to do it. I was getting the thrill. And so I went to Michael's craft store. But what are you going to steal there? An unpainted picture frame? Like, there's no option. And so I go into Michael's with my thieving purse, which at the time was a burgundy Juicy Couture bag that held its shape that you could just open up, throw stuff in, okay? It never looked different. And so I'm walking around Michael's craft store for like maybe 45 minutes. And if you don't want to get caught, don't hang out 45 minutes before the crime. Don't do that. And so there was nothing in there to steal, and so I was like, all right, you know what, I can find something, and so I went to the glitter aisle. And I stole pounds of glitter. I just opened up my purse, knocked all these glitter containers. I'm like going along the shelf. I'm like, here we go. I've already been in there 45 minutes. Got the glitter in my purse, put the bag over my shoulder, walked out the front door, and was like, see ya. And they didn't do anything because that's their policy. What are you gonna do with that much glitter? Okay, I held on to it for 6 years. Yeah, I held on to it until I was 28. And then at a music festival, I dumped all of the glitter into a bag. Yeah, if you really want to piss people off at a music festival, glitter bomb them. I was walking around High Five Friday at Bonnaroo. I was walking around with this bag. I'd stick my hand in the bag, pull a fistful of glitter out. Someone would high five me, and then I would be like, high five, and it would go. Which, to me, you know, on acid, I'm like, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened. I'll tell you what, you want to ruin someone's day at Bonnaroo? It's with glitter. All of a sudden, they're so mad, and they're like, this is terrible for the environment! And I was like, I stole it! Anyway. Towards the end of my thieving phase, when I stopped, okay, ultimately I stopped stealing stuff because there just came a point where I was like, if I do get in trouble, what am I gonna do? Call my mom? I'm too old for that. Like, I don't think I could live that down. My mom would try to ground me, okay? And I didn't even live there. And so the last thing I went to was I went to Best Buy, okay? And I went to Best Buy, and if anyone in here has had a bit of a thieving career, then you know I was out of my league. I shouldn't have been there. Eyes bigger than my stomach. I shouldn't have been there. And so I go to Best Buy, and this was at the time when, this was 10 years ago, so this is when Beyonce's Visual album came out. So that was my first go-to, okay? It's an incredible album. And so I got that in my purse, and I'm walking around Best Buy, and then I was gonna steal a digital camera. Yeah, okay? Cameras on phones weren't then what they are now, okay? People use digital cameras. This was a big get. And so I'm walking around the store, and I knew I had gotten caught. I could tell they were looking at me. I shouldn't have taken the camera out of the box. I don't know why I did that. I was like trying stuff. I was like, you know, I was trying stuff, trying to see what stuck. And so I took it out of the box, and I could just tell that they caught me. I could see them looking at me. I could tell I was made. And so I was like, okay, somebody had told me once that if you don't actually take the merchandise out of the store, you can't get in trouble for it. And is that true? I still have no idea. But somebody had told me that, and I ran with that. And so don't forget, at this time, too, it's like, I'm in Best Buy right now. They're probably like, what the fuck can this person afford? I had pink hair that was shaved on the side, okay? I lived in Nebraska. I looked like Nebraska Skrillex, so keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as I'm going here. And so I was like, all right, I had the camera out. I knew I was going to get caught. And so I was like, I just got to do something fast, try to get out of the store. And so I just ditched the camera and then headed right for the door. And I could see the security guard coming up on me. He's like, has his little remote thing or walkie-talkie thing, his radio thing, thank you. Security guard, was this guy a cop? And honestly, in hindsight, this is probably the best day of the security guard's life. Like, people don't respect him, and all of a sudden he's about to catch somebody. And so I see him on his radio, and he's making eye contact with me, and I'm walking, and I'm like too confident. I'm just like, you gotta play into it. And so I like walk straight up to him, and he stops me, and he goes, we know you were trying to steal. We have you on camera. We know what you look like. Do not come back to this store. You are banned from here forever. And I looked at him straight in the eyes, and I just said, yeah? Well, I don't usually look like this. And now when I go back and visit Omaha, I go to that Best Buy just because. And I I just want everybody to know that I still got the Beyonce visual album out. Thanks a lot.